This hourly segment is brought to you by Papa Nicholas Coffee. Papa Nicholas Coffee, a family tradition since 1897. Online at papanicholas.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. How to be media literate. How to properly consume news. Separate fact from misinformation and disinformation. That's what state governments from New York to Illinois are for. We have a media literacy mandate here in Illinois thanks to Governor Jelly Belly and our betters in Springfield. They do in New York State as well, thanks to Kathy Hochul and New York State's betters in Albany. Here was the governor explaining this exciting development of media literacy, setting up, like we set up during COVID, Vivek Murthy's Ministry of Truth in the Biden administration.
Today I'm directing the Director of Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services to develop media literacy tools for K through 12 in our public schools. This will teach students and even teachers to help understand how to spot conspiracy theories and misinformation, disinformation, and online hate. Start talking about what we're seeing out there. Give the teachers the tools they need to help these conversations in school. And by teaching younger New Yorkers about how to discern between digital fact and digital fiction, we can better inoculate them from hatred and the spread of it, and help prepare them for a very fast-moving and often confusing world.
And there's no question. The government is great at erasing hate, providing clarity, and instructing on what is true, what is good, what is beautiful. I mean, that's what the government's there for, right? Oh, man. Oh, boy. Joakim Book is a writer, researcher, and editor on all things money, finance, and financial history. He's written on this topic as well, how to rationally consume news, which you want to talk to him about, as well as perhaps a couple other things. I don't know, Joakim, thanks for joining us, but I think Governor Hochul covered it, didn't she?
Yeah, absolutely, and I hope the kids take the message to heart and apply it to her message itself.
Yes, right. Well, obviously, she's an oracle of all that is true and beautiful and good, as is every politician. So they're beyond reproach. It's people like me and, others who diverge from the established orthodoxy of the politicians that I think she's speaking about.
Yeah, it might be. What I always like, this is a good example where I can actually say and proudly say that I don't know who she is. I don't know what this policy is about, and it couldn't affect my life less. And usually that would be kind of an awkward thing to admit, But the topic here is that I'm trying to sort of argue that news is mostly noise, and you should probably quit it. Get rid of it from your life.
Well, I want to let you develop that, but it does matter when the government is instituting curricula along these lines in K through 12 government schools, where 90% of the students matriculate, and doing so in states like New York and Illinois. I mean, this is, to me, another tool of indoctrination, and so even if you don't believe that, I think it's probably prudent to be a bit circumspect about the motives of the politicians. Okay,
but you're assuming that all of a sudden schools and school teachers are good at what they do. You haven't taught the kids anything. They haven't learned any math. They can't spell, and all of a sudden they're going to be experts at this disinformation thing. No, this is just going to be some other point of stuff to do, and the kids just yawn and look at their iPhones. So they're not going to It sounds scary, you're right, and we should be vigilant about this kind of stuff, and this is one of the reasons why, homeschooling is amazing. You have some control over what your kids actually learn, but the safe fallback idea here is that, kids don't really learn that much at school, so even, they don't learn the good stuff, but they also don't, aren't that harmed by the bad stuff.
That's the good news. Kids aren't learning in school. That's what we have to hang our hats on.
Yeah.
That's comforting. All right. So I mean, give us then now develop your perspective on how to rationally consume news other than Chicago's Morning Answer, of course.
Yeah, always tune into Dan and Amy. No, like I mostly come around to this position that you probably shouldn't consume it at all. Like, it's noise. It's in the way. Our brains are not equipped for it. We have this informational overload. Turn on any news show and it's like breaking, this thing is happening and this story is developing. And it's always stories that if you step back for a minute, they don't actually affect your life or anybody's life. Maybe you want to watch the Weather Channel. That's cool because it's gonna, if you bring an umbrella or not, or the traffic or something. That makes sense to me because it's serious information that isn't that politicized. But anything else, I'm not so sure what it gives you. News by its very nature is extreme. Like what you do every single day, normal kind of things that happen. You drive to work, you get up, you leave your kids somewhere, you take a shower. That's not going to go on the news because it's normal. So the kind of stuff that goes in the news are extreme things. And if you consume extreme things over and over and over, you're going to get a very weird view of the world. And I definitely think that's one of the reasons that people have such strange impressions of what's happening. We don't know. My favorite example is all these tests that people like Hans Rosling and Gapminder people have been doing. How many people were lifted out of poverty? What's how many people have diabetes in your country? Things like that. People don't have a clue because things are in your face and you get a distorted view of the world. So when things get better, you tend to believe that they actually get worse.
Well, how did you wean yourself off of the news?
My favorite trick is to just not watch it and read instead. Consume slow news. If you want to read serious things, read books, read magazines, listen to long-form podcasts, listen to serious conversations that aren't clickbaity and aren't, 30-second segments on, CNN or something. And my other favorite trick, I use Twitter a lot, but I curate it heavily by muting all the things I don't want to see. So there's a function there where you can mute words. So I mute everything I don't want to see. And every time there's some big event happening in the news, I don't see the news, but I see other people mentioning these words, and I mute them.
Okay, what words?
Yeah, exactly.
Tell us the
I want to
words
know.
that you've muted.
I've got a suggestion. I got one. Let me see if let me posit one guess, and then you tell us. Here's a word that Joakim Book mutes: existential.
Actually, I might not. That one might not be on the muted list. Greta Thunberg is definitely. She's definitely on it. The Donald is definitely there. The latest ones I added were Hamas and Gaza. I don't want to see that. I don't need that.
And what was the first one you said? Who's
Hamas. Oh
no.
Oh, Greta Thunberg, the Swedish climate activist who likes to say existential.
Oh, yeah.
He's definitely on the list.
Yeah.
He's definitely there.
All right. Well, since everything is an existential threat, I mean, to your point about extremism and hysteria-inducing, right? Exactly. So, as you're trying to tackle serious things and push away the noise, what about the serious things that are going in the West with respect to popular revolts, for lack of a better description? Geert Wilders in the Netherlands most recently, but before that, last week, we spent a lot of time talking about Javier Milei, and he is bringing a serious paradigm shift, or at least he intends, it would seem, to bring a serious paradigm shift to Argentina, including the dollarization of Argentina. And I wanted to get your reaction to that, particularly because we sort of have a bit of a historical analog. It's not perfect, but the financial troubles of Greece last decade, and the debate that happened there between devaluing the currency or an austerity program and maintaining alliance with the EU. And I just wanted to get your take on sort of the importance of this moment in Argentina and what it might mean for the West.
Yeah, I mean, I follow it not super closely, but I find it very interesting. I used to live in Argentina a decade ago. And I'm a libertarian by philosophy, so obviously this is an exciting moment to see what's going to happen. And to see what he actually manages to pull off. My understanding is that he's kind of gridlocked in Parliament and things, so he might not be able to do as many things as he wants to, or says that he wants to, anyways. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out. It's very interesting. The analog to Greece it's sort of interesting. It sort of points to this problem with dollars. Like, I hear a lot of people say, yeah, Argentina, the government can't manage their finances. Dollarizing the economy is the perfect thing to do, and Argentinians are already saving dollars, and this is perfect, and it's going to tie their hands. And that's true, but the analog to Greece there is pretty apt, because Greece was tied, like in the euro. They didn't have control over the euro because the European Central Bank did. So they'd already outsourced the monetary control over Greece. They still got into this mess. Right, so it indicates sort of that dollarization, while it's good, and I definitely favor, tying the hands of corrupt politicians as much as possible. It doesn't have to. It's not necessarily the solution. Like, you need more than that.
Well, right. It's not
Some of my colleagues at AAR wrote that you have to accompany monetary reform with fiscal reform. You can't just think just dollarize the economy and then spend like crazy. No, you still need to fix the fiscal problems in your country.
Of course, it's not a panacea, but it is an important statement of principle, because what it essentially says, what Milei is essentially saying, as I understand it, is that the savers and the small entrepreneurs and the poorer households, they're not going to pay the heaviest price, which they do with inflation. Instead, it's going to be the state-owned companies and the rent-seeking larger firms and so forth. They're going to bear the brunt of this. That's an important distinction, and I hope he explains that too, because maybe some people don't get that aspect of the dollarization. So, of course, fiscal reforms are also necessary, and they're going to come in one form or the other. But, who is lining up to bear the biggest brunt under what Milei proposes to do is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to keep in mind that the people in Argentina who have access to dollars are generally not the poorest. So when it's very hard to fairly dollarize or fairly get out of a currency.
But they're the savers. But they're the savers.
The poorest people in a society, they may.
No. The people with dollars are the savers. Is my point.
Yeah. That's true. So so the way that you have to jump over to a new monetary system, the way that's what the dollarizing is. So you somehow have to convert the peso holdings, or you just hyperinflate the currency so that the value of your paper pesos just goes absolutely to zero. But in that case, you hurt the poorest a lot, because they're the ones who actually hold some pesos. Nobody else holds any pesos. Because they get out of it as fast as they possibly can by any kind of hard asset or saving dollars or foreign accounts or whatever. So you have to be a little bit careful about how you do this, and it's very hard to do it without pain.
Oh, no, there's going to be pain. I mean, and we see this in the West, too. I mean, we're obviously not in the position of Argentina with 140% inflation in October, but
on our way there.
Well, right, and
on our way there,
and every country in the West getting out of the expansive, unfinanceable government that we've imposed on ourselves. None of that is going to be without pain.
Yeah,
nowhere.
Absolutely.
Nowhere.
The only benefit I see is that Argentinians, there's like a collective mentality and a collective history. Like, people know that you should not trust your politicians, you should not trust your monetary authority, you should not hold pesos, you should do everything in your power to get out of pesos. But I think Americans and Europeans don't really have that basic mentality. They, like a lot of Americans are very proud over the dollar, and they want to, they don't mind holding a bunch of dollars, but they miss out this idea that they're just siphoned off value via the constant inflation.
Yeah.
So people just hold their nation's currency. They don't have this mentality or understanding that a lot of Argentinians have. That you can't just sit on cash. You need to get out, because these guys are not trustworthy.
Yeah.
You can't hold their
that may be changing ever so slowly, but there's definitely some change afoot. Joakim Book, writer, researcher, editor on all things money, finance, and financial history. Joakim, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Over 30 years ago, the challenge was accepted, and the Pride Stores has been redefining the convenience store experience throughout Chicagoland ever since. In the spirit of giving thanks this month to the surrounding communities for support